What if everything you have ever been taught about attracting wealth could be distilled into a single thing? One object, small enough to fit in the innermost pocket of your wallet, so modest in its appearance that a stranger would see nothing remarkable at all. And yet, according to one of the most carefully preserved teachings in Jewish mystical tradition, the person who carries this one thing, who understands what it is and what it represents, carries within them a channel for wealth that remains open regardless of the circumstances around them. Not a lucky charm. A teaching with roots in the Torah, in the Kabbalistic literature of Safed, in the practical wisdom of the Musar masters, and in the lived experience of Jewish households across 20 centuries. A teaching so consistent and so practically grounded that dismissing it requires ignoring an extraordinary weight of testimony. Today I am going to tell you what this one thing is, where the teaching comes from, and the precise, simple practice that transforms it from a physical object into a living spiritual tool. We begin in a small town in Poland in the early 18th century, in the home of a woman the tradition remembers as Rivka of Posen. Rivka was the wife of a textile merchant named Tzvi Hirsch. Their household had something many households around them lacked, a quality of quiet financial stability that persisted through seasons that brought hardship to their neighbors. When the markets contracted, Tzvi Hirsch's business contracted, but it did not collapse. There was always just enough. Their neighbors noticed. The community rabbi, a scholar named Reb Nachman, came to visit and asked directly, "What is the secret of this household?" Rivka reached into the cabinet where she kept the accounts and produced her husband's worn leather wallet. From the innermost compartment, she removed a small folded piece of paper and handed it to Reb Nachman. He unfolded it. He read what was written. Then he sat in silence for a long moment. What was written was a single Hebrew phrase, 4 words, in the careful handwriting of a man who had copied them from a source he considered sacred. The phrase was, Zehu she'omdah la avotenu. This is what has stood by our ancestors. These 4 words are drawn from the Passover Haggadah. They are part of the passage, and this is what has stood by our ancestors and by us. For not only one enemy has risen against us to destroy us, but in every generation they rise against us, and the Holy One rescues us from their hands. Reb Nachman asked, why this phrase? Of all the verses in all of Torah, why this one? Rivka told him the story. Tzvi Hirsch, in his 4th year of business, had faced devastating loss. A large order delivered on credit to a buyer who had disappeared. The loss threatened everything he had built. He went to his teacher, an elderly scholar named Reb Mordecai, and asked a question that Reb Nachman later called one of the deepest questions a person in financial difficulty can ask. Is there anything in the tradition, any practice, any object, any daily reminder that can help me hold on to the knowledge that I am not alone in this? Reb Mordecai gave him 4 words and taught him their meaning. Zehu she'omdah. This is what has stood. The word omdah comes from the root amad, to stand, to endure, to remain upright under pressure. Not the standing of a person at rest, the standing of a tree in a storm, not because the storm is absent, but because the roots are deep enough. La avotenu, for our ancestors. Not for some of them, for our ancestors, the entire unbroken chain of people who came before, who faced losses and threats that make most of what we face look modest by comparison. And what has stood? The covenant, the binding relationship between the Jewish people and the source of their provision, established at the dawn of their history and never revoked by anything the centuries have brought against it. Reb Mordecai said, when you carry this phrase in your wallet, you locate yourself inside a story larger than your current situation. You say, I am not merely a merchant who has suffered a loss. I am a link in a chain that has survived things far worse than this. The force that stood by those who came before me stands by me now, not because I am exceptional, but because I am part of this chain, and the chain has always continued. The Kabbalists of Safed added a precise dimension to this teaching. Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, the Ari, taught the principle he called hitlabshut, clothing. A spiritual reality, in order to operate in the physical world, must be clothed in a physical form. This is why the Torah was given in physical letters on physical parchment. The physical form is the mechanism through which the spiritual reality becomes operative in the material world. When you write the phrase, Zehu she'omdah la avotenu, on a physical piece of paper and place it in your wallet, the precise physical junction through which your provision flows, you give the principle a body. You bring it into the dimension where your financial life operates, and it becomes present there at every transaction, every moment of financial decision, every encounter with the flow of money through your hands. This is why the writing must be by hand, not printed, not typed. The hand that writes a sacred phrase creates a connection between the writer and the principle being written. The intention present in every stroke is embedded in the physical object, and the object, carried daily in the most intimate of all financial vessels, becomes a constant reminder of where the carrier stands in relation to the source of their provision. The practice Reb Mordecai gave Tzvi Hirsch is this: write the phrase yourself on a clean piece of paper with full attention on the meaning of each word. Fold the paper carefully, not the way you fold a receipt, but the way you fold something that matters. Place it in the innermost compartment of your wallet. And each morning, before you carry your wallet into the day, place your hand on it and say 4 words. You stood by them. Stand by me. That is the complete practice. 4 words on paper, 1 touch each morning, 1 sentence of acknowledgement. Tzvi Hirsch did exactly this. He did not recover the lost money. That was never promised. What changed was what the tradition calls das, the deep, integrated knowing that makes right action possible. In the weeks following the loss, when fear had contracted his thinking and made it nearly impossible to see clearly, he began to think more clearly. He began to see options the fear had been blocking. He made 2 decisions that he later identified as the turning points of his business. And the enterprise that had seemed on the verge of collapse grew over the following decade into something far more substantial than it had ever been before. Was it the phrase? He could not say with certainty. What he could say was that it had done what Reb Mordecai promised. It had located him inside a story larger than his current situation. And a person located inside a larger story acts differently within their circumstances than a person who believes their current situation is the whole story. Write this phrase tonight, 4 Hebrew words, in your own hand on a clean piece of paper. Fold it. Place it in the innermost compartment of your wallet. And each morning before the day begins, you stood by them. Stand by me, less than 30 seconds each day. And over weeks and months, it builds inside the person who performs it a quality of groundedness that no single loss and no single season of difficulty can erase, which is, in the tradition's understanding, the most reliable foundation for financial resilience and enduring abundance. Subscribe to this channel. Each week I bring you another piece of this living inheritance, the wisdom of Torah, the teachings of the Kabbalistic and Musar masters, the ancient practices that have carried Jewish families through every form of difficulty into lives of meaning, wholeness, and enduring abundance. And in the comments below, tell me, will you write this phrase tonight? And what does it mean to you to be part of a chain that has always continued? You are not alone in your financial life. You never were, and you never will be. Shalom.